Welcome to the Croc Podcast.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here is your host, Dr.E.
Howdy, Croc Nation. Dr. Tommy and Ellie here with you with another special Croc podcast alongside through the oceans of space and the internet is my friend and co-host Angel Santana. Angel, how are you, my friend?
You know, not too bad, not too shabby. We are moving forward, and the Citizens United to Overcome Cancer is back on another Sunday.
It's such a great Sunday, too, because this is the kickoff for our Thanksgiving week. And wanted to ask you, Angel, any particular Thanksgiving traditions that you have with your family?
Well, yes, and I'm about to break tradition. So let me answer your question first. Yes, tradition is rice and beans. We do the turkey. Usually, instead of a turkey, we actually do a pernil. But this year, Angel is hosting his own mini Thanksgiving. So I will be cooking rice and beans, and my wife is going to be cooking a ham. Let us pray.
No kidding. Wow, that's fabulous. So we'll try something new.
Absolutely.
So, Angel, I was, getting ready to prepare this podcast, and this is a very special podcast, right? Because it's the Sunday right before Thanksgiving, and I was looking at some of our old pre-Thanksgiving podcasts, and I think the one that comes to mind is our famous podcast that we did with Ramon Ruda. What a fascinating and intriguing and such respect to Ramon, who did a beautiful, I want to say it was probably a 1.5 hour, 2 hour podcast on his life about having breakfast with President Carter and what he did in the Bronx with the housing development. And it was such a blessing to have him. And that was, I think, our first Thanksgiving podcast. And then we did one or two, basically extolling the virtues of gratitude, right? Because Thanksgiving is all about being grateful. And we showed, with the data that gratitude can assist and help a survivor actually have better outcomes. And when I was planning this episode, I was thinking about doing another traditional gratitude episode, basically how we can help our survivors find gratitude when there's probably, it would be very difficult to find gratitude when you've just been diagnosed with cancer. And you've heard of the expression, man makes plans and God laughs, right? So that's exactly kind of what happened. God kind of tripped me up and said, no, Tom, you're not going to be doing that podcast. You're going to be doing another podcast. So this is a really wonderful story, a very profound story. Maybe one of the most profound and moving moments that I've had actually in my entire career. And as I said, we're going to talk about this couple. We're going to call them Jim and Deborah. And it starts on a beautiful fall day. And Denise and I were going on a hike. We went up to Sam's Point. Anybody in the Hudson Valley area who has ever heard or seen Sam's Point knows exactly how beautiful it is. You take a nice, beautiful walk up to the top of this really rocky crag, and you look over the entire Hudson Valley, and it's majestic, and the leaves were turning, and everything was just gorgeous. And we went on to go to lunch at a little local restaurant that we like. And I mentioned to Denise that there was a patient that I wanted to stop in and see on the way home. I wanted to do a home visit or do an old-fashioned house call. And it just so happened, again, God put our trajectory of where we were and where we needed to go to have this patient in his wife's house exactly right on the way home. So it was just almost as if it was meant to happen. And I asked, do you mind if we go to see, Jim and Deborah? And she said, no, let's stop by. So we told the waitress, give us a couple of sandwiches, put them in a bag, and we're going to go bring him over and go see some nice people. And I wanted to give you a little background on Jim and Deborah. So unfortunately, Jim had stage 4 metastatic cancer. that had spread and pretty much had ravaged his body, and he was getting near the end. And Deborah was calling me and actually called me often to try to get some advice and see what she can do to make him more comfortable, or just trying to go through the process of the end of life process. And since he was officially at this point bedbound, I agreed to do the home visit. So, Angel, I want to take a little bit of a little tangent first, and take a quick look and talk about house calls in general, and kind of look at some of the things that I think about them, or some of the things that I think are advantageous. So just to go on record, I'm a big fan of house calls. I'll tell you why in a moment. I used to do many house calls very frequently when I was a younger doc. And basically what I would do is I would pick up some food and I would go for a visit. I would go to my brother-in-law's restaurant, get a tray of chicken parm, or get some pizza and bring it over to the family and sit down and just kind of get to know them, or, try to help them with whatever challenges that they were going through. And mainly these were patients that were on hospice, but not always. Sometimes they were just patients that I really connected with, and I just wanted to kind of get to know better, or try to help out of a jam. And I have to be honest with you, I know you probably would not have a hard time believing this, but I actually love doing home visits. I actually love doing house calls. And as I got busier and busier over the years, my house calls became fewer and fewer. And now actually it's very unusual for me to do a home visit because I just unfortunately don't have the time. So as it relates to this story, it just was basically put right in front of me. It was laid right in front of me. It was almost as if it was a divine call for me to make this house call. So just a quick couple of advantages of what the home visit or house call has for the doctor. The visit is on, as you can tell, it's a home visit, so it's on the survivor's home court or home field, right? So they feel more relaxed, they're more comfortable. Also, there's no rush like in the office when you have, three survivors double booked, and you have everyone who wants a piece of you, and the nurses want you to sign this or sign that, and the therapist needs you to go check on a case or look at a CT. So, you don't have that when you go make a home visit. In addition, survivors are surrounded by their support team. And usually the spouses we've already met in the office, but we get to meet their children. We get to meet their dogs and their pets. We get to meet their grandkids, their friends, their neighbors. And it's usually a very rewarding experience for everybody. And the survivors are more open to share, during a home visit. They feel more comfortable. They open up. They're able to share more, and you'll gain invaluable insight, just not just into the survivor themselves, but just into their physical environment, their psychosocial environment, their economic environment, their resources, the spirituality of the survivor that you're caring for. All of this you wouldn't get unless you walked into someone's home. You'll also be in a far better position to advise them on situations that actually, when you actually see stairs going up to the third floor of a bedroom that obviously they're not going to be using anymore, or actually seeing where their bathroom is in proximity, or to see if the wheelchair can get around that curve. Looking at their yard, if you want to advise them to be able to go outside and sit down and, have a glass of lemonade or iced tea or whatever, and enjoy the beautiful fall colors. See where their bedrooms are. Is the bed sufficient? Are they going to get bed sores? Just basically to get a lay of the land, Angel, if you know what I mean. And you'll now be viewed not just as their doctor, but also as their friend. And that will strengthen your role as a healer. And it will actually make that relationship very, very strong and very tight. And you'll be able to benefit them more as far as them being compliant with what you recommend. You could also leisurely take a deep dive into a survivor's fears and their anxieties and their belief systems. and their views on death. You could actually ask them these things and not feel rushed or not feel pushed, to have to get an answer, in an office, whereas you're sitting down and you could really get to read them quite well on these very important matters that we don't usually have time to discuss. And you'll also have a valuable opportunity to support and acknowledge and uplift the survivor's family. They've been going through so much. I've always said that a survivor's family has gone through everything that the survivor has gone through. Maybe they weren't on the machine, but up up to that point, they pretty much everything else. And they really need that reinforcement and that uplifting. And they want also to feel that they could let go. They want to have permission. It's almost as if they want to be rid of any guilt that they might feel if their loved one does pass away while they're at home, and what to expect when somebody does pass in the home. And you have now a chance to meet the person and the survivor who they were before they became a survivor. And I think that's maybe the most important point, is that universally, people are surrounded by photos and mementos, of a life well lived. You can see pictures of them on vacation or in their occupation or at a life event like the birth of their children or the birth of their grandchildren. And these photos and mementos, they show a hardly recognizable person to the survivor, to the patient that they in this case, Jim was a very muscular, strong, happy, joyful, and proud man who was reduced not to that, unfortunately, because of his struggle and his journey with cancer. Sorry about the tangent, but let's get back to Jim and Deborah. So Denise and I, we find the house and we bring a beautiful box of food in our hands, and we go to, the front door, and we're greeted by Deborah and by her dog, and we're petting her dog, and we meet the daughter-in-law, and they bring us into the living room, and we sit down, and we have, a lot of niceties and platitudes and things like that. And then we start getting some updates, what's going on with Jim, what's happening in the house, all of the hardships and things that are going on. And, we're petting the dog and getting these updates. And then we've come to find out that hospice had been in to do the consult, but the plan and the resources were just beginning to trickle in. So everything wasn't in place yet, which is why there was such angst, why Deborah had so many questions, because they didn't have, all of the teaching that needed, all that end of life teaching. And they were very confused and they had a lot of questions. So it was a blessing that we were there, and we just let them talk and let them vent and let them cry. And then I took her by the hand and I asked her if we could go see Jim. And she and I and all of us went into the room, and it was so sad because, Jim was now completely bedbound, and he was reduced to really a bag of bones. His eyes were sunken in, with that faraway stare in his eyes. He was soiled because, Deborah couldn't clean him up alone, and help wasn't going to be due for a few hours. And I think, Angel, it was at that moment that I made a quick decision. And I knew that Jim was dying, and I knew that he only had a few hours left to live. And I refused to let him die without his dignity. So I kicked everyone out of the room except for Deborah. And I told her to give me some hot, wet towels, some soap, and some new sheets. And then I did what I never thought myself capable of doing, Angel. I single-handedly lifted him out of bed. I held him with every ounce of strength and effort that I had. And I held him like he was dangling from a cliff. And if I let go, he was going to fall down the cliff. And I held him really like I never held anything ever before in my life. And I held him with the knowledge that if I dropped him, we would not be able to get him back into the bed. And I asked God to give me the strength and the fortitude to complete this one little task that I wanted to do. And when I held him, Deborah quickly cleaned him. We changed the sheets, and with my muscles twitching and fasciculating, and I was running out of power and running out of steam, we were able to position him back to a clean and crisp and warm, dry bed. And when our eyes met, Jim and I, for the last time, his stare wasn't distant anymore. It was focused. And although he couldn't talk to me, his eyes told me everything. His eyes told me thank you. And Deborah kissed him, and we went back to the living room to join everyone. And Angel, I didn't make a big deal out of it. I didn't mention what happened or what we did in that room. I knew that the story wasn't about me or what I did or what I gave to Jimmy and Deborah. I knew that the story was about what Jimmy and Deborah had given to me. You see, Angel, in this world of being a doctor, many people see us as glamorous. They see the glamour, they see the power, they see the wealth, they see the influence, they see a kind of mystique about someone who has the power at times to steal life from the jaws of death. But what people don't see is all the self-doubt. They don't see the guilt. They don't see the stress. They don't see the exhaustion. They don't see our actual humanity, with all of our blemishes and all of our shortcomings. And when we need moments like this. We need moments like I was in, moments like I spent with Jim and Deborah to basically justify our sacrifice. We need these moments to assuage our doubts. We need these moments to strengthen our will and to continue our work. We need these moments to purify our souls, Angel, and sanctify and justify our efforts, because on this coming Thursday at the Thanksgiving table, when it's my turn to verbalize what I'm thankful for, after I express my gratitude and thanks for my family and for my health, I'm going to thank God Almighty for giving me the opportunity, the privilege, the honor of being a doctor, because there is no other profession where people would welcome you into their homes, a virtual stranger, with their loved ones on their deathbed. What other profession would people trust you enough to just feel safe to see them at their worst moment in life? What other profession gives you the opportunity to make such a profound impact in people's lives? Acts so simple, so quick, yet acts that will be remembered for a lifetime. I know, Angel, that God sent me to that house that day, not so I could save a patient, but so a patient could save me. Angel Santana, your thoughts?
I think that given the fact that this is Thanksgiving week, it's just a renowned just a I have no words to even put a spin on other than the fact that I'm just speechless about it because it's the first time I've heard the story. Um, they say love your neighbor. They say honor thy neighbor. They say respect your neighbor. They say do to others what do to others what God would want would do to us. But here's the thing, this is a great example of not doing something because you feel obligated, not doing something because of the fact that this is your job in life. It's doing something because you wanted to do it. And it's amazing to see um, one random act of kindness done in a professional and a loving and enduring way to a friend whose last hours on earth went out in dignity.
Angel, thank you very much for those kind words. It was a tough podcast but I have to tell you, I struggled with this because I didn't want our survivor thrivers to think that this was about me or about me bragging about doing something. I really wanted them to know that being a doctor, there are times when our patients infuse us with life and infuse us with a purpose and infuse us with a justification for all of the things that we may miss out on because of, our vow to take care of the sick. And I think that one of the other slants that I wanted to kind of talk about is the fact that so many of my colleagues anger me, infuriate me when they complain about being a doctor. And I hear it sometimes in the doctor's lounges or up on the floors, or I might be talking to a colleague on the phone and I'll hear some, wisecrack about, oh my God, if I were only a stockbroker, or if I was a lawyer, or if I was an Indian chief. And I think that, episodes like this or moments like this that will live in me forever. This, even though I've been doing this for decades, this was such a profound moment in my career, a profound moment in my life. That it really crystallized or recrystallized something that I already knew. And that is what a privilege and honor it is to be a doctor, to be someone that can heal. And I want to now spin it back to our podcast, to our Croc Nation, to our Survivor Thrivers. It's especially edifying and invigorating for me to care for you guys. You guys are going through so much, and I know that this is Thanksgiving week. And I know that everyone from Madison Avenue to the television commercials to your families, they want you to put on a brave front. They want you to act as if nothing is wrong, to act as if everything is okay, to act like you're not angry, that you've just gotten word that you have a terrible, terrible, nefarious disease, and they want you to smile and eat your turkey and, shut the front door. And I want to tell you that you have every right to do you. You have every right to express whatever emotion you have. And I want to tell you that on behalf of all the other doctors and nurses and practitioners that care for you, we are so lucky to do what we do, to be able to help you, to be able to serve you. It is an honor and a privilege to take care of you guys. And that, at the end of the day, is what I'm thankful for. I'll end this podcast with the way we end every podcast, and fittingly, especially on today's podcast, we will end with our Croc prayer. That's wishing all of our Survivor Thrivers a long, healthy, happy, cancer-free life. God bless you. God be with you. Peace.
Hey, Croc Nation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast to your friends. Visit our website, crocvip.com. We would love to hear your feedback.